Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's on DisneyPlus.com, and it is time for the Star Wars Mandalorian Aftershow. So today is a little bit of a trial. That's why there was not a huge amount of thing beforehand, but we're going to be trying to do this for the next couple of weeks for the Mandalorian, seeing how we get on. We're doing a kind of an aftershow and talking about the latest episode of The Mandalorian. So with this one here, I'm going to be kind of going through some of my thoughts on the episode. Ideally, probably like 20, half an hour. It depends on how long until we've run out of stuff. And we have the live chat open, so it's open for all subscribers. I'm going to open this one up, but I'm going to try and keep this here just to comment about today's Mandalorian. Anything else, I will probably just skip over because this is not a Q&A. This is about the Mandalorian, but you can let us know your thoughts. This is going to be a full spoiler version, so if you haven't seen the episode, you're probably not going to want to watch this one and come back afterwards when you have watched it. So again, it's a little bit of a trial, so we're just going to be trialing out some different things. We've got a few people joining in live. I suspect a few people will join in. Not normal time. I normally do a Q&A or something like that. So this, again, it's a little bit of a trial just to kind of see how this works, see if the format works as a way of kind of doing these reviews a little bit more interactive with you guys, to talk to you and just kind of try out a different format and stuff. And then if it works out well, we'll do it with this one here. We'll do it with some other bits and pieces as well and see how we get on for a little bit. So like I said, it's a little bit of a trial. So up first, today's new episode of The Mandalorian. Watched it this afternoon and I really enjoyed it. All the things I liked about it was it felt a little bit like an episode of the Clone Wars, but just in live action. We had lots of references to the events of the Clone Wars. I love the fact that we had droids in there, lots of Roger Rogers. I love all of that kind of thing. I think that's a really great way of kind of connecting all these universes, all these sort of different sagas, because it's always been a bit of a pet peeve of mine since I grew up on the classic films, the classic trilogy. And so when the prequels come along, there was this kind of thing of like, I was okay, I enjoyed them. I think I've actually enjoyed them a little bit more with time. And I definitely feel like the Clone Wars series kind of helped fill it out a little bit. But for me, the Mandalorian just kind of has really helped us connect. And I know that obviously with Filoni being on this series, I think that's really helped kind of bridge the gap. We've seen that a lot. And I really like the whole idea of the fact that they just had, the droids and they're using them for other things. They're not it kind of, again, it felt like a connection. In some ways, it kind of felt like it's in the wrong era. This could have easily been something around like the Bad Batch era rather than sort of set between. I mean, you got to think this is set between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So I really like that whole thing. I also loved there was a lot of special guests. There's a lot of special sort of actors and stuff in here, which I was not expecting. Obviously, Jack Black was a really, really interesting addition. I thought his character was kind of thing as this kind of falling on what we've seen before, where he was a member of the Empire, but now is kind of now working sort of essentially has become a king. So he's definitely fallen out. He was just full of life, he was just Jack Black. And in some way, that's a little bit distracting because he's in kind of himself. It kind of made sense with the storyline, and I liked what they did. I actually also really like the fact that Lizzo was in here as well, playing his wife, and this like whole weird thing behind her, which was like a lot of fun. I like the fact that they kind of messed around a little bit with that one, and I love the fact that Grogu kind of connected with her, and he obviously felt safe with her, and helping her kind of do the ball thing at the end. I really enjoyed those two being kind of characters because they could have been done by anybody, and I think they brought a little bit of humor to it. I mean, Lizzo's acting maybe wasn't amazing in it. I think there was a couple of times, it felt a little bit funny, but I like the fact that the two of them were in there. I thought that was a nice way of doing guest spots. I mean, just seeing Jack Black in a Star Wars was just a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that aspect. Also loved the whole idea of them kind of doing the table with lots of different aliens, and I love that part of it. But speaking of aliens, one of the things I also really liked about this one was kind of the opening scene with the two aliens, and then we kind of end up with the Mandalorians coming in, which I thought was cool. The fact of it kind of following on from where we left off with the last season, and just the idea that you had two species in love with each other that kind of maybe shouldn't have been, and what the aspects to it, and how peace. I thought that was really interesting because we've not really seemed to have explored that a lot. It definitely, for me, was a really kind of cool thing for the idea of just having that, like the difference between yeah, we've seen it in other shows like the Orville, and I think like Star Trek has done it, but like Star Wars, I don't, we've seen it in the books, but not really on the screen. So I really, really like that on there. Another one, and as Save Me also said, Sasha Banks was in there. She obviously the boss. It was nice to see kind of some of the Mandalorians back from season 2, and just kind of seeing them sort of connect them all. And I think that's definitely needed if they're going to be moving forward with the idea of kind of going back to Mandalore. They're going to need more of them, and I think bringing them all together is a great way. I like the fact that they had this little fight as well with the leader of them. I can't remember his name. And then obviously you had Bo-Katan. I like the fact that they had a little bit of a fight, kind of flying around all over the place. It was a little bit strange in how it worked, but at least it did what it needed to. But yeah, so always nice to see Sasha Banks back in there as well. So I did like that whole aspect. I kind of was a little bit iffy on the fact with the dark saber. I don't know what you guys thought of that, where just kind of Mando kind of saying, well, I kind of lost it, and then she beat the person that I lost it to. And so I suppose it was a nice, easy way of making Bo-Katan the kind of the major, she's now in charge of the Mandalorians without actually having to do a fight. So that kind of definitely got away with it. As we said, it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And I think one of the great things, but she's really been like hitting some of the best episodes of Star Wars. I mean, if she doesn't deserve, she's really proven to me that she could pull off a movie. She seems to be doing this fantastically well. She seems to get it. She's definitely delivered. And I really enjoyed today's episode. It felt like it did have lots of side quests and stuff going on, but that's kind of like the joy to me for the Mandalorian. It's something I've been really, really enjoying with this whole show, is that aspect to it. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely thought she was great in it. So as I said, if you are watching live, let me know what you thought of the episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Up next, obviously, we also had Christopher Lloyd. So it was kind of fun seeing him in there. I haven't seen him in something for a while. So it was kind of strange seeing him in there. I loved as well of like how it kind of sent them down to the bottom. And then when he turned out to be essentially the one behind it, because I mean, I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be I would say a bigger thing than it was going to be. Because I thought it was going to be, maybe it was the Empire trying to get control or something a little bit more deeper than it was. And then it just turned out to be him. He was just kind of wanted a little bit of control over people. I think it was definitely a bit of a weird way of how he went about it. I thought the whole thing with I've got this big red button to press and I can stop everything was a little bit convenient. Obviously it's set up with that ending where she shot him, which I did like that. I really like the fact of like she just stopped messing about and just shot him, and kind of but the whole thing of I'm gonna set them all off was a bit like, really, like why would he have I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense why he had this big red button by his table which could do it all. I did think that was a bit daft, but I'd love to know what you think on that one. Yeah, it was definitely very, very interesting. So how all that came together. And then when he just got put in front of Jack Black and Lizzo, and kind of them just having a little bit of conversation. But one of the things I really enjoyed about that whole thing was about the fact that he was a separatist, and he was sort of following Dooku. And again, just like having Dooku being mentioned, I mean, this guy, we went right through the whole of the original trilogy. I mean, we're talking, it must be what, 30, 40 years from when like Count Dooku was around at this point. So I did like the little reference, but it was definitely a real throwback to the Clone Wars. Speaking of Clone Wars, obviously we had the robots with them, the droids with them fighting. I did think the big like tech warrior thing kind of running looked really weird. I wasn't entirely sure that looked a little bit odd. And Mando just being able to like tackle him to the ground, and they defeated him in one go, because it always seemed a little bit bigger and a little bit harder in the original prequels. He looked just a bit weak, the droid. Because the battle droids they're just normally pretty much like tanks. I know when I'm playing like Star Wars Legion, you know, that if you got some of them, they're usually quite heavy hitters. So I tend to think of them as a little bit heavier hitters than the one that we saw. But overall, yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice, and I really liked it. And I like the idea that again, Mando doesn't trust droids, and so he instantly just took that dislike to it, and you know, his own way with it just didn't seem to work. I also really enjoyed how he interconnected with the I can't think of the I have spoken, you know, the guys that were down in the pit. And I like the fact that he'd taken on and learned and like worked out how to use, you know, to speak to them and get what he wanted from them. So I thought that was a really good, interesting way. But again, let me know what you guys thought of the show. You know, did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? And what didn't you like? It's definitely I think for me I thought it was a really solid episode. I can see why some people maybe if you're expecting kind of like Andor level here of like much more serious writing and stuff like that, this just isn't it. It's much more, I would say, much more mainstream, a little bit more easygoing. You know, anyone could kind of pick this up and follow it. It also, in some ways, is essentially almost like its own individual episode. You could kind of pick this up and go off, and you kind of maybe wouldn't even have to know what else has gone on, which I kind of like. And I think sometimes with all this interconnection stuff, you see it a lot with the animated series where we get some like 2 or 3 parters that are like important, and then you just get lots of like little filler. And I could see how some people could say, well, this was just a filler episode, go off and do some quests and stuff. But yeah, no, I thought we had an interesting side story, but also we did advance it at the same time. So I definitely feel like that one has been going on. Dana says here has been really enjoying this season so far. I've definitely been enjoying it. I definitely have been. I wouldn't say it's been as good as the previous seasons. It doesn't seem to have that same like. It's like today. Obviously, like for my time, it comes on at 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I've got a few little errands I need to do and a few things. And it was like, I can just wait. And I was just trying to avoid social media for a little bit. But yeah, it was a very, I don't feel like I've quite got that same instant of I've got to watch this. Maybe on the finale, I might be able to feel a little bit different, but maybe because we're mid-season, it just doesn't seem to matter too much right now. So, yeah. As Fanboy Universe says, wasn't expecting Jack Black, Lizzo, or Christopher. Yeah, I mean, any one of them would have been quite an interesting cameo on itself. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed them, especially. I think you can do these kind of little cameos if it makes sense. I mean, there's no reason an actor can't do it. And I mean, who else could Jack Black play? I mean, he just seemed to be perfectly cast as kind of like this eccentric king, or sort of not necessarily a king or president. I thought that worked quite well. And again, I really enjoyed Christopher Lloyd. And Lizzo, they could have probably got somebody in maybe a little bit better in terms of acting, because she was a little bit dodgy in some places, but it was fun, and you know, she was connecting better. Dana says, for me, Mando and the Marvel show is a priority for my son and I totally get that. I think once we get back into, I think with Secret Invasion, I'm really looking forward to this one when it comes up. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But I feel like with Mando, it's definitely like I've got to watch it today. Whereas with Bad Batch, I was kind of a bit iffy. But I definitely felt like yeah. I don't know. It's just strange. I feel like we're at a point now where we've had so many Star Wars series. Maybe if we don't have one for like 3-4 months, when Ahsoka drops, it might be a little bit more interesting. I'm kind of hoping they do, because it's, I don't know if like three shows a year last year was a bit too much. But I know with Mandalorian, it's also kind of been interesting to see how people have reacted after Andor, because a lot of people that were like really enjoying Andor have been finding Mandalorian to be not as fun, or because they want something a little bit deeper, a little bit more stronger, the story to be a bit better. Because I think Andor really was a much more polished series, but unfortunately, the people didn't watch it the same way. Whereas Mando's much more mainstream. And I kind of wish we had a little bit of both, and a bit more story and a bit more things. So definitely feel like that one's an interesting way of doing it. Let's see here. We've got a comment here from. But Gary said, I haven't seen today's episode yet, but last episode was great. Yeah, no, it was. I think this whole series has been pretty solid. I definitely feel like that. Oh, and he said he was hanging out with Paul in Toronto last October. Yes. I mean, I like the fact as well, again, that just we're having more of Mandalorians. There's just more Mandalorians in it. I definitely think that's definitely a good thing, exploring that universe, because we don't really have too much of that. We also had as well, and like Dana says here, we need some dark side shows, and definitely agree. I think Andor, and I'm kind of hoping that the Acolyte might be a little bit more like that, where it kind of kicks in. Tony says here, it reminded me of the Boston Dynamics video when Din kicked the droids. I've not seen. Is that the the automated robot? Because I think when they're like walking around, is that what that one is? Yeah, but I did. If that's the one I think it is, these automatic robot kind of things, it does definitely seem to be a lot of fun, I think, for doing it like that. And just him just kicking them, or just like, get away, just kind of trying to tick them off. Gary says, got to check out that one-to-one Grogu from the Slideshow collectibles. That's the cool thing. I'm looking forward to this weekend. I'm going to Star Wars Celebration. So tomorrow I'm heading up to London for that. So yeah, I'm hoping to have a look at some of those kind of. I'm sure there's going to be lots on offer and stuff. I have kind of maybe said that I might treat myself to something. Something's for the statue for in here. So I'm going to pick something up. Rather than picking up lots of little stuff, I'm going to try and get some for the Funker, but I would like to just get something a little bit decent. I don't know where every sideshow, maybe a hot toy or something like that, or something a little bit interesting. So that's definitely something. But yeah, I think as a whole, this episode, Grogu had hair in person. I suppose, yeah, he probably has like very, very faint like hair and stuff on there. I could see how that could work. But yeah, no, I definitely really enjoyed this week's episode of The Mandalorian. It was definitely, I think it was definitely a strong episode. I definitely thought that one worked. I enjoyed it. It was kind of quite fun as that, because it was one of those shows where I was like, I just, put the laptop down, sat down, just watched it. Dogs in the lap, and just enjoy. And you don't get that as much, and it was kind of quite nice to do it. Fanboy says, which one are you most excited for, Ahsoka, Acolyte, or Skeleton Crew? I'd probably say Ahsoka. Acolyte first, because that's like a whole new era. You got the High Republic era. We know nothing about that. I'm just going to get this one to. Yeah. So for me, sort of Acolyte is probably first one. Skeleton Crew, because again, it should be a little bit different. I don't know how that's all going to work. I am looking forward to Ahsoka, because I like Rebels and I like Ahsoka as a character. But out of the three, I'm just like, I don't need more Ahsoka. Does that make sense? But let me know what you think. So as I said, this was a little bit of a trial. With the after show, it's something I'm going to try out again. Again, timing wise is a little bit tricky sometimes. Whether or not to do it on the day that the show comes out. What I might do next week is I will do it the day after, just to see if we get a better reaction in terms of when people have seen it, because they've had that extra day. Because I know I did the poll to find out what everybody wanted, and a lot of people were saying like you wanted it the same day. But obviously time zones is like, if I like doing it later in the day, like generally I tend to like to sort of finish just after 5 and have a few hours off before I then, do like an hour or so before bed, because of time zones. So that's why I'm kind of doing it now. Because it's coming up to like 5 o'clock. So it's like, it's at the end of the workday. Even though, I'll be carried on anyway. But so this is obviously, again, we're going to be doing this as a little bit of a trial. I'll do it next week. I shall do it on the Thursday and see if that gets a better response with more people having seen it, because that's a trick as well. And also just I think we've got and then another episode. So this was episode 6. So we've got 2 more episodes to go. So we'll do that one there. And I might also do these for some other films as well, like maybe look to do one for Peter Pan and Wendy. Though I might give that one again, might do it next day or a little bit later. So we're going to experiment with this after show kind of thing where you guys can kind of jump in with your questions. I can kind of give a review and stuff and we can do a little bit quicker than like waiting for a podcast. And also as well, especially with these kind of shows, we know we don't get to see them in advance and stuff. So I just thought this would be a fun way of doing it. So unless there's any other questions, so let me know if you've seen it or anything like that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode before we wrap this kind of like I said, trial one up. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Hope you guys did as well. CJ says if Disney's going to make right, so I'm not going to do. I'll do that one since I've already started. So if Disney's going to make live action King Kong series, then I'll be happy with a new series, and it's going to be an inspiring and entertaining show, and Kong will have the old traditional trademark. Yeah, I think I don't. Do we need a King Kong series? I don't really see the point of it. But yeah, I'm going to try with these after shows. We're going to try and keep these ones generally on topic. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Again, this was like a little bit of a last minute experiment. Just wanted to see how this one would go. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Dana says, is there another area for Star Wars that they should focus on? I just think they should go after Rey. I think they should go after Rey and go into a new area where we don't know anything about what's coming up, where it's going, or anything like that. Because ultimately, right now, the trouble is with Mandalorian is we know the First Order is going to get created. We know that that's going to happen. So that's definitely going to be a weird thing for them to do. So they definitely need to focus on that for sure. All right. On that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will be back. Obviously, check out today's Disney Plus news video as well. And I shall see you guys tomorrow. Latest.